Hi, this is Tony, and we're back on the bench. And this evening, we're going to be switching gears here a little bit, and we're going to go down to some ultralight work here. So, we're going to be doing a disassembly service here this evening on this beautiful Shimano EX 1000 custom EX 1000 rear drag system spinning reel. You know, this reel I would say has never been fished before. It doesn't have a scratch or a blemish on it. It doesn't show any indication that it's actually been fished before. So it's going to be interesting to see what it looks like on the inside. It's probably a little on the dry side, I'm guessing. It's probably just been sitting someplace, on a shelf or in a box or something like that. But we're going to start simply with just taking apart some of the outer pieces here. Okay, but this model, I'd say it's probably circa early 1980s, mid 1980s, somewhere around there, I'm guessing. And there's actually a few different series of reels that Shimano made that are all pretty much identical or close to identical to this. There's just the custom X series, and then just the standard custom series. And then I think there's one or two others. I can't remember the names of them right now, but they're all about this size, and they have most of the same features, with a couple of small exceptions. But I have a small handful of these reels, and these are like my go-to ultralight trout reels, basically, for ultralight stream fishing and stuff like that, fishing for trout. So I like them a lot. They're a good size. Mechanically, they're sound, nice, smooth operation. Okay. So we've got the handle off. Once again, this will only be for disassembly, and the reassembly will be in a separate video. Okay. It's been a while since I've worked on these, though. I'm just trying to remember the order of things here. So we've got 3 screws here to get into our side plate. The one thing about working on ultralight reels, they can be a little tricky because the parts are just so small. And sometimes you really gotta go slow and pay attention to where things are and where things line up. Even the drag stacks in these, the washers are so small that they're very difficult to get your hands on and work around and stuff like that. So you just want to use caution. Take pictures or take videos, things of that sort. Make note that this is a shorter screw here at the bottom. Okay, so we're just going to separate that. Okay, now this is a ball bearing reel. Okay, and one of those ball bearings is right here. Okay, and I'm not 100% sure, but it would appear that this is actually a serviceable ball bearing. And so what we're probably going to do is we're going to poke that out, and we're going to have a look at that later and see what we can do with that. It's kind of jammed in there pretty tight, being that it's never come out before, but that's okay. We will investigate that later at a later point. All right, so we've got our cam here that needs to come out. And we've got a main gear that comes out. Yeah, nice and clean, very dry. But you can see there is some old residual grease on there and whatnot. That's okay. All right. So we're just having a look here. Now you want to make sure that you don't lose your clicker tongue here at the bottom. All right, that's really important. Okay, now these reels, they have these like security clips here at both ends of the block here, and they're not always the easiest to get out. And so what you end up doing in a lot of situations is you need a couple of screwdrivers, typically like these small precision sized screwdrivers. And that's usually what's involved in trying to pry these open. And you kind of have to work at it like so. But you can see these are the tiniest little clips, and you don't want to lose them. So definitely have your parts trays nearby when you're doing this. Okay. And this just is kind of standard, for all ultralight gear in general, I believe. It's, these pieces are so small that they're almost impossible to find if you lose them. So there we go. Okay, so you can see there's the other one right there. Very, very small. Okay, so don't lose those. I have no idea, but my guess is that parts are probably almost impossible to find for this reel. Would be my guess, just due to its age and everything. But as you can see, very, very clean. Nothing wrong there. Also make note, there are spacer washers up here. There's actually two of them. There's a thin metal one right here, kind of hard to see. And then there's a thicker metal one right here, okay? And it's important that those are there. You don't want to lose those, okay? All right, so now it's time to take our rotor off here. So we got a security screw or set screw here. Gonna take that out like so. And then we have a rotor nut here, and I have no idea what size that may be, but we're going to find out here in a moment. It's probably metric. Yeah, so that's a 10 mil rotor nut on there. So if you got a 10 mil nut driver or socket, like a 1/4-inch drive socket, that'll take care of that. It looks like it's not reverse threaded, so you can make note of that. Okay. Rotor comes off. Okay. So far, from what we can tell, this is a 2-ball bearing reel. There's the ball bearing here, and then there's a ball bearing here, our main bearing. And this also does, in fact, look like it's a serviceable bearing, so that's important to know. And we will investigate that. And I do have a separate video on servicing ball bearings. As I mentioned in a lot of my videos, if you just want to know just that one topic, just kind of across the board, you can check that out on the YouTube channel. So 2 screws there. Okay, now speaking from experience, this is where this can get a little tricky, okay, because you've got this assembly here, and there's the pinion gear, and then there is this plastic lever right here that attaches along with the clicker right above it, okay? And this doesn't all just come out together, because that plastic piece is stopping it from, coming upward. And so what you have to do is you have to do kind of you have to make a choice, basically. You could leave this in there and clean it as it is and not have to remove it. Being that this is such a clean reel, I'm probably going to do that more than likely. If there was a lot more grease buildup, I would probably take it all out. But in the event that you do want to take this out, you have to snap out this plastic piece. And speaking from experience, I have actually bent these, taken them off. They just don't come out that easily. It can be done though, when you need it to happen, okay? But these have to go back exactly right in order for this reel to function. But what I'm probably going to do in this case is I'm probably just going to hit this just with the slightest hint of WD-40 and just clean it up the best that I can, and it'll be good to go. Okay, but that is what you have to do in this situation, is you have to take that ring out, this plastic ring. And normally when that happens, it can either snap or it'll just bend and stretch, and then it never works quite right again. Okay, so it's actually best to try to avoid taking it out, I would say. Okay, but that doesn't change the fact that we want to try to get our bearing out. Okay, so we will attempt to do that by just gently prying up here in this center section right here. And it is coming up gently, but it is being a little stubborn, so we might have to hit that with a little bit of penetrating oil, a little bit of WD-40 on that. Let that work its way in while we work on the rest of the reel here. Okay, so we do have our rear drag stack here at the bottom. Okay, so we've got a screw here that needs to come out first. Once again, being that this reel looks brand new, I don't think it's ever been taken apart before. So some of these screws and things are pretty tight from the factory, I would guess. Okay. And once again, you want to make note of the orientation of these pieces and parts here. Okay. You want to make note that this clicker wheel here is just gently snug, okay, when you go to put it back on. Okay, and in here, we've got a spring. Okay, this is all loaded up with a little bit of grease, but that's okay. It's nothing huge, and that's just the spring that rests in there. Okay, and we're going to clean up all these pieces and parts, so we don't need to worry about making too much of a mess here, but we do want to ensure that we put everything back cleanly and properly. A lot of the time what I like to do here is I like to get a pair of needle nose and I like to try to grab the bottom of the stack here like so. So you can see we've got a series of washers here and they're all really small. So, you don't want to misplace these, and you do want to make note of the orientation of these. Okay, now I don't have a schematic handy. I'm probably going to end up digging one out though. So we've got two keyed metal washers here. I kind of question the orientation of that, but I don't know for sure. We've got a fabric washer, and then we've got another metal washer here. Because when you're working with a rear drag stack such as this, especially with such small drag washers, you really need this to be correct. Granted, you need it to be correct with any drag system, but especially with small diameter rear drag stacks like this, okay? Because everything relies on these little washers when it comes to your drag power. And because they're so small, you're only going to get so much max drag out of this setup here. Okay. All right. So this is what we have. All right. Are these pieces and components here. Now there's typically like a rubber ring washer in here at the bottom and nestled in here. And this is all loaded up with some excess grease. And this is common. This is typical. Is you get grease buildup and oil buildup at the bottom into the drag stack, hence because it's a rear drag stack, and all that grease and oil comes oozing down and it settles down here in the chamber. So that's pretty common, pretty typical. Okay, but it's going to be our job to clean all these up and make sure that they don't have any more grease left on them. And we're going to make sure that we, put them all back, in the right order as well. And I will dig out a schematic, hopefully for that. I'm going to have to look that up online, and we'll see. This bearing is still a little bit problematic coming out, so I'm probably going to end up pausing for a minute while I get that out and try to look up the schematic and come back in just a moment. Okay, so being that I'm still struggling getting this out, I actually am going to take out that plastic ring, and I'll show you the process that's involved in that. So I'll just take those needle nose pliers, and you have to roll this ring around in a fashion so that you can kind of get a grip on the lip of it here. But you should in fact be able to just roll it out like so. Okay, but you can see what it looks like right there. Okay, just use caution, because if you break this, the reel's not going to function right and you're going to have to replace it. Okay, so very important that you take care of that. Okay, but now that we have that piece out, now we can pull out the rest of our assembly here gently and work on it here. Yeah, okay, so here's our bearing, and then it looks like we've got a bushing here as well. Okay, and then our clicker here and our pinion gear. Okay, and then all these other pieces and parts in here. We've got our block, of course, and we're gonna set this up so that we can actually clean, all these pieces here in their entirety. Okay. All right, but we've got, some grease buildup in here, so we're going to spend some time with some penetrating oil, some WD-40, some Q-tips, some rags, things like that. We're going to clean up all these pieces, get this reel ready for reassembly so they can go back out and do some fishing. So thanks again for watching. This is Tony with Back on the Bench. If you liked the video, please do give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, please make sure you do subscribe, hit the notification button, and that way you will be getting updates as to when there are new videos coming out, such as this one, and also the reassembly video to follow on this reel. And we'll see you next time.